You're listening to Barbell Logic,
the podcast where we talk about what it means to experience strength
and how you can use simple, hard, and effective strategies in training and nutrition to improve your life.
It starts with meeting you where you are right now and finding lasting solutions.
Welcome to the show. Hey, welcome to the Barbell Logic podcast. You got all three of us today. Matt Reynolds, CJ Gotcher, Niki Sims. This is a special holiday edition. How are you guys doing?
I'm great. I've got my turkey sweater on.
Nice.
It's Thanksgiving. I only get to wear this like once, maybe twice a year.
That's right. Not that often. On Thanksgiving or on the day that you butcher turkeys, is that what it is? You go to like Hambrick's farm and...
I thought it'd be okay for Christmas too.
Oh yeah, fine. So, CJ, how you doing?
I would wear the turkey sweater anytime, just
it's
randomly,
really
just
cozy.
like people wondering what. No, I'm doing great. Besides the perpetual toddler plague that goes around, yeah, I'm feeling good.
Yeah,
Dude,
I
is your
also had my
kiddo
LASIK
sick?
redone last weekend.
Oh yeah,
Sorry.
Wait, what? Okay, hold on.
CJ's
Is your kiddo sick?
Sorry.
Yeah, classic head cold kind of thing.
Dude, I have so many kids sick, and I've heard this from other coaches that work for us. RSV is going around big time for kiddos right now.
No.
Church on Sunday, our church is notorious for like 2/3 of the women are pregnant, and they all have 19 kids except for us. And we had one kid in church Sunday. That's how many, all the kids are sick. So I don't know what's going on. It's kind of crazy.
Yikes.
Luckily, I got 17-year-olds, so
Yeah.
I don't worry about that. I worry about other. Never mind. I'm like, let's keep the syphilis down and pregnancies to zero.
And more kids. Yeah. Let's keep the kids
RSV,
that are in
not
your
such
family.
a big deal. That's right.
Two.
No, that's not a concern for my
They used
kiddos.
to tell us in the Navy when we went to port visits, do not add to or subtract from the population. They do
That's
not
right.
count. Like they do not cancel out.
Here is the penicillin syringe that you just get to take out with you while you're off of the ship. So we're going to do a Q&A, holiday Thanksgiving Q&A. We're recording this the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. I think this is going to come out the Tuesday after Thanksgiving. Hope everybody had a wonderful Thanksgiving. It's a wonderful weekend to set PRs, hammer that turkey and all that delicious, all those delicious sides, which I think we're going to talk about a little bit here on the podcast, and then go hammer PRs on Friday and Saturday. It's one of my favorite things to do on Thanksgiving weekend. So hope that went well for you guys. I'm just going to kick off the questions right now. So question from Ryan, which I think it's Riaan, which makes
Rian?
me think it's a lady, but it could not, or a European man. One of the two. So this is the question. I've recently discovered that I have really weak wrists due to arthritis and carpal tunnel, genetics and such, because I had tendon and muscle injury on my right wrist. Question is, would wrist wraps and or straps help to remove some of the stress on my wrist joint so that it does not add as much strain on the tendon and muscle in my wrist? I want to prevent this from happening again, so on and so forth. So what do you guys think when there are wrist issues? So there would be sort of wrist wraps for the pressing movements and probably wrist straps for the deadlifting or pulling movements. Let's make sure we get those right. And what do you guys think?
I mean, absolutely, yes. Wear them as much as you need to. Wear them on squats, wear them on pressing, wear them on benching. Put them on. Wear them now. What do you think, CJ?
I think it's the question to me answers it. It says, would these things help to, prevent this from happening again? But he says that whoever says that this is something that they experience, their wrists give out. So experiment, try it. And you're still training. It's not like you're going to make it worse, certainly. So you have the opportunity, either grab a pair, they're cheap, particularly the wrist wraps, or find a friend who has one to give them a test during your workout. And if the experience is different, you have one-on-one data. Is it going to make things worse? Is it going like somehow later on down the line to exacerbate your arthritis? I've seen no evidence for that. So it's more day-to-day, session to session. How does it work for you?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. And make sure you wear it so that it crosses the joint. Like there needs to be like half of it on your arm bones and then half of it on your hand, not just under your hand. It should make it harder for you to bend your wrist.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, as we have talked a lot about over the last couple of years, training for improvement in quality of life, one of the most important things, maybe the most important thing, is if training is painful and hurts, we want to make modifications to make that not happen, to make it not hurt. And so to say like, oh, you're less of a lifter because you had to wear wrist straps on a deadlift, if they help make things not hurt, that should be a non-negotiable. Like, obviously just put them on. Totally fine. No problem with that whatsoever. If, wrist straps, by the way, we're the #1 wrist strap video on YouTube. If you want to check that out on exactly how to use wrist straps. I think we might actually be the #1 wrist wrap video on YouTube as well. 2 separate videos so you can see exactly how to use those. But I just want to wrap myself up like a mummy for all of my workouts at this point. I'm 43 years old. I
just
feel like
held together by linen and rubber.
I've earned it. That's right. I want to be neoprene head to toe and like big elastic wraps on every joint. That's kind of what I want.
Yeah.
So
I was like comparing the distance between my hip bone and my rib bone to someone like a normal,
like an inch and a half
proportionate person. It's like I can barely get my finger between my ribs and my hips.
Amazing.
And I was like, should I just get them fused together for my lifting?
Question from Nikki. Should I get a 1/2-inch belt from Dominion Strength?
Yeah.
Is there such a thing as a 1/2
or
inch?
an 8-inch? I think it has to be like
That's
a
true.
1/2
If it
inch
just
or
do the whole
full
rib cage,
body. Like
would
my
be-
yoga
that'd be
pants
good.
are getting so high waisted that they're almost
That's
becoming
true.
sports bras at this point. Maybe
There you go.
and just wear a belt over that.
That's the new
Perfect.
fashion.
That's
It
it.
is.
Nikki, you want to read the next one?
Yes. Okay. Oh boy. This one is coming from Senior Tarkovsky. Oh,
Good.
seems to be a follow-up question. Is it wrong if I use wrist wraps? That's what he said. Wrist wraps for deadlifting. I feel like, Matt, you got something locked and loaded here for this one.
The answer is yes. It is wrong if you use wrist wraps for deadlifting. But if the question is, should I use wrist straps for deadlifting, which is not the same as wrist wraps? Yeah, that's totally fine. Right?
Yeah.
Competitive lifting doesn't allow wrist straps to do deadlifts in a meet. And so if you are a competitive lifter, there should be certainly times of your training, and especially, maybe during competitive deadlift, like your competitive deadlift movement, especially if it's 3 reps or less, that you probably don't use straps. But if you're not ever going to compete, as well as if you do compete and you're at 5 reps or more, rack pulls, things like this, wrist straps make life a whole lot easier. And that's the thing that helps attach your hand to the bar. Again, I don't know if we've mentioned yet, we have the #1 video on YouTube for wrist straps. So you could just go to
Really?
YouTube. You don't even have to search Barbell Logic. You can just search wrist
wanna hear
straps.
Talk about it some more in a really cozy looking waffle shirt.
That is true. That's my pre-Tanner fashion days, back when I wore Under Armour.
It looks
But it
great.
was a great baseball cut. So it
Yeah.
gave me the big chest and shoulder look. So I don't know. Anything else on that?
I'd be curious to hear from one or both of you. Like, most people want to start wearing them kind of earlier, or I guess there maybe are 2 types of people who want to wear them as soon as their grip gets compromised, and it's either that or hook grip, which there's a learning curve with hook grip, and it feels pretty terrible. Or they may have heard that going to mixed grip is not a great idea for maintaining symmetry. So I feel like some people, or I think that some people want to wear them early before they get used to hook grip, or they've been deadlifting for a long time. They're like, is there a point to me just not using straps anymore? What do you guys think for
Good
like the
question.
earlier
CJ, what do
on
you think?
lifters?
Me, I have nothing against mixed grip. I've been using it since nearly the beginning. I find it easier to execute. So, there's that. When it comes to if wrist straps, the question was so funny to me. A senior asks, "Is it wrong?" And I'm like,
Is it
Yes.
morally wrong?
"You are weak." No, the
Go to confession on Sunday and tell the priest that you wore wrist straps on
Penance,
or wraps on deadlift.
self-flagellation with your wraps.
That's right. Yeah, just like Luther, I beat my body into submission. You take your
Flagellation?
straps after using the straps
Flagellation?
on deadlift. You didn't know this? You didn't know these stories, Nikki? So that's what
Well, I think I might have just said flatulation, which I think is quite different than what I
Is
intended.
farting.
Which, yeah, I think I would
which
just
would
say,
actually just be a punishment for the people in the room and not so much
yeah, I
yourself.
think I would say flagellation.
That's right.
Flagellation.
CJ said exacerbate a minute ago, and Nikki, you've heard this. That's my favorite word to hear my wife say, which she calls it exacerbation. And I go, there is not a T in the middle of that word. She's like,
That sounds
it's
like something way
exacerbating the
more
problem.
fun.
And I was like, it's not.
Maybe
I
you
don't
could
think
just
that-
exacerbate it away. You might need an
right.
exacerbation break.
I don't think that word means what you think it means. So
Self-exacerbation.
yeah. So CJ, I would agree. Mixed grip, it feels like it probably gets a lot of hate from not just our community, but a lot of strength communities. I think mixed grip is totally fine. There are these thresholds, and please don't overhear these thresholds because everybody's different on a spectrum. I've never seen anybody tear a bicep on anything under than a 500-pound deadlift. I'm sure it's happened. I'm sure they're out there. But if you're deadlifting 315, you're not going to tear your bicep doing mixed grip. You're fine. And if you're under 40 and you're deadlifting under 500 pounds, the chances of tearing a bicep is next to nothing. Now, if you're 60 and you're deadlifting 500 pounds or over with a mixed grip, I think I would be nervous. It's possible that it could go. And so I think you just have to weigh the risk factors, right? Age, general tendon strength. I've met people before, like these guys that I used to compete against in World's Strongest Man. Their tendons were like those massive cables, like like from an electric company that like run across the. I'm just like they would never go anywhere, But if you're doing mixed grip and you deadlift 675, like it's probably a legitimate risk, and you get to some point that I think hook grip is the right way to go if you're competitive. If you're deadlifting 675, you're probably competitive, and if you're deadlifting somewhere in the 275 to 450 range, I think you should hold on and try to build your grip as long as you can. I think that the deadlift as grip exercise is a great idea to do. And then at some point you switch to the mixed grip, the hook grip, or straps. And I think any of those are fine. And the reduction in, percentage of, positive effects is so minuscule that it's not going to matter that much about. And by the way, we've got great videos on all those, not just how to use straps, but also how to hook grip, how grips in all lifts, things like that. So yeah, that would be
I think as long as you have learned how to deadlift with your arms straight.
Yeah.
I really will often see people start using straps and their elbows bend.
Yeah, they start to
And
yank.
it's like,
They'll do the same thing with double overhand, no hook.
mm-hmm.
So because they're squeezing so hard, they like yank it, and then the elbow pulls. So yeah, agreed.
The only thing that really comes to anytime someone says, "What's the best?" or "Is it wrong to?" I'm like, "Well, what are you trying to do with the thing?"
Like the best Matt is obviously the way I do it.
Yeah, of course.
Obviously,
that's a given.
That's why the frogs. That's why the frog squat is the best squat. Squatting with your heels 6 inches apart is specifically Matt.
6 inches high, heels 6 inches apart.
Wait a minute. No, okay, that's probably. I feel seen right now. That's good.
Yeah,
CJ, you want to take the next? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, if you're using it for general strength, grip is kind of a nice thing to have, right? Yeah. Then okay, yeah, use it through the warm-up sets. The warm-ups are a stimulus. Go ahead, go through. When the grip is becoming a limiting factor to you continuing to get stronger, then find some way to keep getting stronger. If that's hook, if that's straps, go ahead. And you'll continue as you get stronger in your warm-up sets, in your work up to your primary, you'll get grip work. Great.
Yep.
So like that's where I'm at. Like, what are you trying to get with it?
Yep. I agree. CJ, do you have access to the question? Yeah, you're in there. Do you want to ask the next question?
Sure. So question from everyone.
Or Erwan.
On the best exercises for strength video. So why don't you add an upper body pulling exercise to the 4 main lifts for a novice beginner program?
I do.
Yeah,
it's called the chin up.
Yeah.
It's called the chin up. So yeah, no, I do for almost everybody I add a chin. I don't add a row until a little bit down the line. I actually just had a new client come in that I started coaching, and he was doing strong lifts. And I don't want to say anything bad about strong lifts, because certainly in the grand scheme of things, I would call strong lifts a brother sister program like this. Like, those are good people. Love the program better than 99% of the programs out there. But they alternate from the very beginning, the deadlift and the row. And for someone who is a novice who doesn't have good control of their back, I want to teach them good control of their back via the deadlift first. And then once they're able to do that, and that starts to slow down, and it will, because deadlifting heavy 3 times a week can't be done for super long. So maybe after a couple months, then I might throw the row in. But pretty quick, I'm going to throw a chin or a pull up or some version of that. Maybe even for somebody who's very detrained or very overweight, it might be an inverted row, right? Where you hang from so you're a little more horizontal, your body's a little more horizontal. But I like to throw those in. And I think in the beginning for most of my lifters, it's the 4 main lifts plus a chin up is what I do. What about you guys?
It does end up in the program at some point or another, and it kind of really depends on the lifter's history. Like if they're pretty undertrained, undermuscled, like whatever pulling exercise they do isn't going to be as impactful probably as the deadlift, and we'll just see enough good stuff coming from those lifts. But, probably within 5 weeks, there's going to be a row of some sort. Sometimes now, if they have access to a gym, I'll have them do like a cable row or a dumbbell row or a chin up. So it really kind of starts to depend on the lifter, but it may not be in the first month, but it's going to probably be in the second month for me at this point.
That's good. Most of the people, quick follow-up question to you is, I was thinking about how most of the people that I train are at least in a similar demographic to myself. They're kind of middle-aged dudes. And so they have the ability to get to their first chin up or first couple chin ups pretty quick. Are the majority of clients that you're taking on, Niki, females, and does their ability to do a chin up or not, and have access to bands or not to take some of that body weight off, affect whether you program chins earlier or later into their novice programming?
A lot of the women who I've started working with lately want to do a pull-up. They want to do a chin-up. So they come in just roaring out of the gate like, I want to do this. So I'm like, okay, let's get you doing it. Yeah. So I'll have them do a lat pull-down or even the assisted pull-up machine some people have access to, or band work, and yes, some sort of variation of the sort negatives to get them working up to it. Yeah.
And then CJ, you've done a lot, and I coached you for a long time. You love body weight exercises as much as barbell stuff. So you're always trying to do different variations of those things. What does that look like for your own coaching of your clients for when you tend to add chins or pull-ups or a row or some of that upper body pulling motion?
Well, and you've seen this, Matt, and within Principles, the Principles course for the Barbell Academy, the basic template program and the basic template instruction we're giving new coaches is not just the big four, bench, press, squat, deadlift. It's the big four plus a horizontal pull, a vertical pull, a row, a chin, and conditioning if they're going to do a 4-day program. So, and there's different ways to do it for a 3-day, 4-day program, in part because, like both of you said, they get to it really quickly. So, and it's up to the coach and the lifter to decide, like, do they need to focus on just these tight exercises because they're really unfamiliar, they're really deconditioned, and then quickly get to it, or do they start from there?
Yeah,
when it comes to
that's a great point.
When it comes to my own coaching, my own programming, I kind of throw chins in from the start. For the kind of people that I work with, and in general, it either they're interested in it or there's so many progression tools that they have, like working with a good number of military folks right now, and that's kind of a mission critical task for a lot of selection programs, a lot of tests right now. Even though the Army pulled out the leg tuck, it's still good in their combat fitness test. It's still good to be able to do. So all my Army guys are like, I
feel bad not knowing that.
Yeah, the Army Combat Fitness Test, the new one, had a movement where you start from here, arms extended. You
at the bottom of a chin, for those of you listening. Okay.
Yeah, bottom of a chin, but your hands are stacked over each other. You're in a mountain climber position, and you bend your arms to 90 degrees, and you pull your knees to your elbows and pull it down. At first, I thought it was kind of
like a knees to elbows sit up, but rather than being horizontal, you're vertical.
Yeah, visually, for those who can't see, that's very much what it looks like. And in the ACFT, you would have to kind of hold that 90-degree position. You can't get a lot of body swing into it. At first, I thought it was kind of silly, but then I was practicing rope climbs, and I'm like, holy crap, this is the rope climb movement. This is that dynamic. And as we look at the requirements that the kind of people that I work with have, it just makes sense to throw in chins from the beginning. And for a lot of people, even if they don't think so, it's like, hey, we're going to throw in this progression because it's great to get in upper body pulling. And then 2 months into the program, coach, I got my first pull up, or I got my first chin up. And that's a really exciting thing for a lot of people, especially people who never thought that getting a chin up was in the cards.
Yeah, that's good. And you made an important point there too, where if I put a person on a typical 3-day full body split linear progression, I'm going to put chins in pretty quick. But if they're in a 4-day linear progression novice program, which I really think is probably superior, I'd almost rather have them in an upper lower split in the kind of the way we do it. I am in agreement with you, CJ. I would have a horizontal pull on one of the upper body days and a vertical pull on the other upper body day, and then just go with the squat and the deadlift and some conditioning on the lower body days. And it works really, really well. I think you get the best bang for your buck in a 4-day split. For people who are going from completely detrained, a lot of times what we're doing, it's not that their body can't handle 4 training days. It's that their mind often can't. They're going from never training, and 1 or 2 days a week is just not enough to really make the progress we really want. And so 3 days is kind of the minimum of, we need to do 3 days a week. We need to do Monday, Wednesday, Friday. But if they want to do 4 and they can do 4, that Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday split, something like that works really, really well for the vast majority of novices who are not so completely detrained that they struggle to even get through the main portions of the movement. Cool. Next one. All right. Kind of leading in. So we were talking about adding the upper body pulling exercise. Next question is, what are the advantages of performing, with the advantages of performing compound lifts? Is it necessary to do accessories, say, at all?
Which is kind of what we just talked about with chin-ups.
Sure.
But yeah, and CJ, I think you have a preloaded response to this, but what are you doing it for? What do you want?
No, I mean, it's sort of similar. I'm always the yes, but, yes, and, or I hate the phrase "it depends," because "it depends" is always the answer and it's never the whole answer.
Yeah.
So
unsatisfying,
right?
Let's pretend everybody's in the middle of the bell curve and then just say, let's just talk in absolutes. Way more fun.
So if always. For me, I think most people benefit from it. And if they don't benefit from it really quickly, like if they don't, benefit from the start, they'll benefit from it relatively quickly. Especially if they're new to movement, then, new to training, they've been sedentary for a couple of years. I actually find there's more benefit to them in just getting exposure to knowing like what they can physically do, what their body does. I don't want it to be high stress. I don't want it to be loading up a lot in the program, stressing them out. But, if they're relatively sedentary, we're going to get the basics down, and then I'm going to add things to get them exposure to what can your body do. Now, is there like, we again go into more in advanced concepts, like what are the accessory exercises we use and that kind of thing. We've talked about this on the podcast a million times. And what those benefits are depends on what the goals of the individual are. If I've got somebody who tells me like, I want to get strong now, but like, I'm thinking, or I think strength is important, but I want to do a military selection program. I think strength is important, but I've got a CrossFit competition. I've got a 5K I want to run. Then my idea of an accessory exercise isn't what's going to drive up the bench or the press. My idea for an accessory exercise is, okay, here's the core. Here's the strength that they're getting. How can I introduce them to and start them pivoting towards that post-novice program that's going to get them to their 5K, their military selection program, or something like that. So it's a different way of thinking of accessories.
I like that because it's
and what their
specificity of goal is kind of what you laid out. Nikki, we were joking on a previous call today. You've had a lot of people come in and like, I want to grow my butt. I would think that would change some of the accessories that you do if like that's the primary goal. You're still going to do the main lifts, and then like what might that look like for you, or other examples that you use as you add accessories to your clients' training?
So what I've been learning about so far, there still needs to be heavy stimulus. So squats are great. I would actually say those are better than deadlifts for the range of motion. So I like to keep those in the progression, but then I really like to have isolated exercises. So like glute bridges, or really hip thrusts. Hip thrusts are the one where your back is on the bench and you have a barbell across your hips. That's a great one. Yeah. And some machines just have really specific glute kickback or some gyms have really specific glute kickback machines, which are really great. You're just really isolating. Because what I found is really important is if you're doing squats and deadlifts, you need a break from loading the spine. And so if you can get to some isolation exercises like lunges, some sort of hip thrust, some sort of kickback, and then some sort of abduction, that's what we're going to throw in there in addition to it. And so with those ones, you get really high rep, push to RPE 10 without loading the spine again with more squats, more deadlifts. Yeah. And then you have to be kind of considerate to like, okay, how are their knees for lunges, and
can they walk up the stairs the next day?
Yeah, stuff like that. Because the glutes can handle a lot of volume and a lot of frequency, and also how much time do they have. So I've been kind of learning more and more about what is the most useful, because I really think when it comes to glute stuff, there's a lot of programming advice out there that is just, it feels difficult. Like I feel this in my butt, so it must be doing something. When really, is that actually useful? So I'm trying to kind of experiment for myself and my clients right now, like what actually are the most efficient programming kind of methods to follow at this point.
I just look really pretty simply at the ability and age, often which are correlated, of my clients. And so I will tend to will introduce body weight exercises as accessories first if they are able to do those things. So we talked about chins. I love dips. I love push-ups. I love inverted rows, glute ham raises if they have access to it. By the way, glute ham raise with a band around your neck is a tremendous glute builder, because there's so much hamstring in the beginning, and then the glute opening up the glute extension is not that hard. But if you put a band around your neck and attach it to the bottom of the glute ham raise, also excellent video on YouTube on the Verbal Legit channel about that.
That's a good one.
And so you can do that as well. It's an excellent glute exercise. But a lot of people don't have the ability, a middle-aged sedentary or detrained person can't come in and do body weight dips. And so for that person, I'm often looking for like the cable machine or bands for tricep push downs and banded curls, for different face pulls, rows, things like that, are a little easier on the body, a little easier on the joints. I've got a kid, actually it's Jesse Meekham's kid from YNAB, and I just started coaching him, and he's 16 years old, and he's like, I want to get jacked, and so we're going to do the main lifts, and then we're going to do a whole bunch of like chin-ups and dips and curls and push-ups and mostly body weight stuff. And so that works well. And if they don't have the ability to do that, or it seems like it's a risk of injury, then I just make modifications to what that movement is and change to something else. So use more like dumbbells or cables or bands or whatnot for the older population. So I think that covers that pretty well. CJ, why don't you ask the next one for Niki?
Sure. Yeah. I kind of want to know this one. So what's your favorite or go-to submission move in jiu-jitsu?
Man, I can't help it. I go for this one every single time. Is I get them into a closed guard, and then I do a cross collar choke. I've won.
So hold on. So the person is laying on their back.
What does that mean?
Yeah, explain.
So I have closed guard, which means I'm on my back and my legs are around their waist, which when you're just watching doesn't look like a great position for me, but it actually is. I have a lot of control.
And you're facing each other or facing the same direction?
Facing each other.
Okay, got it.
Facing each other.
You're on the ground
around their waist.
Okay.
Yes, on the ground, on my back, legs wrapped around their waist.
Okay.
And then cross the collar. So you grab the opposite side collar, pull them in close. Then you reach around and grab, like stick my thumb in their collar behind their head. And then when they try to post up, I loop around their head and then cinch their own gi around their neck.
Choke
and
them
it's
out
like
with their own gi.
Yeah, with their own. It's like a super white belt move. It's like the one that I first learned, but it's like when you can get someone in that, and like if you have it really locked in, I've won most of my competitions, I think, with that or a triangle. It's
you basically just love feeling somebody else's body go limp when you choke.
Well, I way prefer to choke someone than do joint locks, because
for sure.
It's so, I think it's so mean. Like I've hurt myself so much. Like my shoulder is just really perpetually effed up from like arm bars and stuff that I just like don't want to do that to other people.
You choke
and I would
somebody
rather
out, they just go out for a few seconds and then they come back.
Nice.
Like,
wake
it's
up,
fine.
You give each other a
someone out
hug
until they pass out. That's on them. But like, it just seems like it's less permanent.
That's That's probably good.
And it just realized for me that when you say, when you were describing the movement before you said the gi, I'm like, how would you do that on a t-shirt or a rash guard? Like, so you compete in gi and gi jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
So you compete with
You got a
the
big
full
collar on.
Yeah.
gi on.
Yeah. I wear big baggy pajamas I feel like I should just do a disclaimer. I've taken like a legit break from jiu-jitsu right now, so I feel like I need to like fess up to it because I just actually want my body to be united again.
You're tired of even putting arm bars.
I really am.
Just negotiate that with the person in advance. No arm bars, no ankle locks.
Like,
no.
if you do anything to my joints, I will choke you until.
Maybe you should take up boxing for a while. You could just learn how to punch people.
Oh my gosh!
You didn't want to take a lot of hits to the head. By the way,
I was hanging out with my friend Hannah, who started Muay Thai, and last time we hung out, we just talked about like how hurt we were, and then I had this realization after she left. I was like, you know what? I just spent the whole weekend rationalizing being hurt and in pain. I was like, I just actually don't want to do that anymore.
Those Muay Thai guys, they take like bamboo sticks and they beat the shit out of each other on their shins and forearms.
There's no weight class.
Basically, until there's no nerves left in your shin. I mean, your shins are nothing but callous scar tissue, and your forearms are the same way. So that when someone kicks you in the shin, you're like, I don't feel it. So it's kind of like our thumbs on the hook grip. It's like what we do.
In
Sounds
America,
like a good time.
Yeah. In America, people pay to learn that. But in Thailand, people actually do that for survival and to feed their families. And we're just like, yeah, here's $200 a month. Let's do this.
All right. Niki, why don't you ask CJ about his recent ruck event?
All right. So CJ, you just had a recent, like, what's it called?
Go Ruck.
What was your ruck event called?
Go Ruck HTB. So it was their heavy, their tough, and their basic event over one weekend.
Heavy, tough, really brutal. Is that recent event that you just did, was it the hardest one you've done physically? And if it wasn't, what was the hardest physical event you've undertaken?
Yeah,
give us an overview of the event first. I want to. What in general? Like, how long was it?
Sure. So there's no fixed timelines necessarily, but on average, a heavy is going to be about 24 hours. A tough is going to be about 12 hours. A basic is going to be about 6 hours. And between each of these events, you get 3 to 4 hours of time. So that's usually about 2 hours of sleep.
Hold on.
Plus pouring as much food
you
down
went
your throat as you
12 hours and then a 3-hour break and then 6 hours and then a 3-hour break and then 3 hours?
No, 24, 12, and 6.
Oh my God.
So
I don't even know if I could watch Netflix for that long.
I wish you would have asked me my question about my hike before I asked the question about to CJ. That's ridiculous, dude. And you're wearing a ruck.
Another
which is
thing,
what, 30 pounds
people sign up
or
and pay to do.
40 pounds. What's on your back?
So for the event, everyone's pretty much wearing their rucks all the time, except for short breaks. Mine was 40. I think I measured mine at like 45 pounds before we started, because you got the 30-pound plate in there plus some gear, and then the ruck's weight itself. And really, the event it is a team event that is cadre led. So, for instance, it was 49 degrees that weekend here in San Diego because I don't know why. The first every event started rucking out to the beach. They put you in the water, very first thing. So
at 49
that's
degrees.
Fun. At 49, and then we do PT on the beach. We load up sandbags, and most of the event is going to be. And this particular one was on Camp Pendleton. It was on marine ground as we go up and down those back hills and to the memorial crosses at Horno and different places in honor of those who had fallen from the cadres, like many of them that the cadre knew. But as we're going through, you're carrying 120 pounds in your back, 60 pounds in your back, 80 pounds in your back of different types of equipment, carrying jugs in your hand, and it's just covering distance. Besides the PT beatdowns, we probably put in, I think, a little over 50 miles on feet with different, amounts of weight in on shoulders and hands and that kind of thing. And then the PT and then random stuff that just happens. When people say, like, is it the hardest thing? It's there are different types of hard. So probably the hardest physical event to recover from for me that I ever did was just because I was stupid. I decided to do a half Ironman triathlon off the couch. This was back in 2013, 2014. And I didn't actually... What's that?
Great idea.
Right? I didn't even have a bike when I decided to do it. So I bought the bike 2 weeks before the event. And
2 weeks.
yeah, it was not so much. So, and I placed about like a like middle of the pack, a little bit behind. It was like about 6 hour time frame, which isn't terrible, but it was terribly planned. It was, young and dumb, and, just got through the event. For about 2 weeks, I was thrashed because the intensity had to be so high for that entire stretch of time. For something like an HTB, it was interesting. I've done a tough where I was wearing just the tough, the 12-hour, whereas I was wearing a heart rate monitor, underneath my shirt, and I got the data later. And most of the time, heart rate's about 100 beats a minute to 110, 120. Even when you've got, heavy weight on your back, we physically, we're good at walking. We're very efficient at walking. So it's not like any given moment, except for these brief moments of real suck. It's not like it's physically the most challenging. It's more the emotional and the mental parts. How am I dealing with the challenge of the environment that I'm in? How am I managing the team around me? And working up the emotional gusto to manage, I've got to get back under the 120 pounds, and I was just under that 30 seconds ago. Or that feeling that isn't true, but that there's somebody who's gray manning on the team, there's that I'm looking for someone to blame for the fact that I'm, sucking right now, that it hurts. And you're looking around and there's that one person who just happens to be not carrying anything. And it's really that emotional management to keep your cool and be like, hey, this is the way. You chose this, you paid for it, and we're in this together. For that, I'd probably say it was the most, it was emotionally taxing on that. And definitely the most taxing recently, pretty close to the most taxing ever. Maybe
how did you feel the day after, and how fast was recovery based on the way you've trained now going into this thing?
I felt pretty well trained going into it. And I managed my equipment well, which was the real big thing. So most of the suffering that people are going to get in the days afterwards, of course, I was struggling downstairs and just randomly taking naps because I couldn't handle. And I noticed one thing is I would go from sitting and feeling okay, and I would stand up and my heart rate would jump to about 120 just from standing for about 2-3 days afterwards. There's just something systemically that wasn't right. And breathing wise, I picked up a bronchitis. It's called exercise-induced bronchoconstriction. It was just this bad cough.
And coughing because of breathing in cold air and yep.
And salt. And it took about 2 days before I stopped tasting blood in my mouth, which is, it's a thing. But within a week, I was able to do some light rowing 3 days afterwards, or I chose to do some light rowing 3 days afterwards, and I was back into moderate training the week after the event.
Okay. That's not bad.
Well, I can't wait to hear how your hike was.
Yeah.
I feel so much less of a human now. No, I went on a sketchy hike last weekend, or by the time people listen to this, a couple weekends ago. I will only feign ignorance primarily on this, is that I've always wanted to go on a camping trip. It was a legit camping trip with dudes with with backpacks and sleep in hammocks and not tents. I've camped plenty of times growing. That's what poor people do when you grow up. You go to a state park and you put up the tent and you camp. That's what you do. But you're sitting in lawn chairs. You drive the car into the state park, spot that you rent. And so you're just sort of semi roughing it. And so a lot of the guys I go to church with and some of my buddies, they're hardcore campers, I would say. And I still thought that what I was doing was just a general hike, which I love to hike, and I've rucked before, and all of those things. I just thought, I thought it was going to be a hike. I figured it would be a little bit challenging, like what I do when I go to Colorado, because it's an elevation. I was like, well, it's not elevation here, but it may be a little more difficult. But I had no knowledge of the hike going into it. And so the guys I'm going with, the main guy is 120 pounds, literally.
Oh, dear.
And he's like five. I mean, he's a little, he literally kind of looks like a horse jockey. He's 5'3" and 120 pounds.
It's probably a
And,
mountain goat.
It was also 74 degrees the day before we went. And then the day we went, the high was 38 and the low was 18.
Oh, dear.
And so I was very nervous about camping and sleeping in hammocks in 20-degree weather, 18-degree weather, and like doing all the things. So, I had quite a bit of that stuff anyway. I bought a few extra pieces to make sure that it like had a good pack and a great sleeping bag and, good hammock and underquilt and all the things you're supposed to have. Rain fly, it snowed on us about 1.5 inches that night, which is crazy early in Missouri to be snowing, in the middle of November. So I'm nervous about camping when it's cold. Oh, I should not have been nervous about the camping part because the camping part wasn't the problem. The problem was we did a 4.5 mile hike. My pack was also 45 pounds with, food, a lot of water, and just the bare necessities. I didn't really overpack. I took a coat, which I really didn't need. The coat was the one thing I didn't need. I thought, well, it's going to be 18. I'm going to have a coat, but really good, like wool thermals and layers were totally fine. So the coat was kind of a little extra bulk, but other than the coat, I really didn't overpack. The problem was that of those 4.5 miles, half of them were actually what I would call rock climbing, where for sure you were it was all fours. You were going up enough of a sheer face that there was no way to walk up it with two legs. You had to climb. And there were several times we had to climb with ropes that had been left there by previous hikers. It was off. There's no trail. It was in the middle of nowhere. And if you look the place, it's called the Eye of the Needle in Arkansas. Like if you're an investor in the company, please just turn this off right now. So no, for real, trust me, just turn it off right now. Like lots of people have died in the last couple of years on this thing. And I didn't know.
Oh, dear.
And many people had been rescued going into the Eye of the Needle, which is basically this like big rock formation. It looks like an eye of a needle, but you have to climb up a rock face. If you go to my Instagram, you can see some of the pictures. But I started to cramp when we got to the base of the mountain to climb up to the Eye of the Needle. And so the problem was, I was like, man, I'm like, my quads would cramp, and then I would kind of bend my knees a little bit. My hamstrings would cramp, and then my abs started to cramp. And I was thinking, as CJ was talking about doing the pull, what'd you call it? The pull thing where you go down to 90 degrees and lift your knee. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was like, you realize how much on a rope climb, maybe 400 feet in elevation. I mean, it was enough, like lots of times that you could fall to your death. It had rained the night before. It was just above freezing. Leaves are everywhere, wet, slick leaves. And I got good hiking boots. I mean, the gear was fine, but it's being 285 and having a 45-pound pack. It's not the same thing as being 120 and having a 40-pound pack on your back. And so there were lots of times where I was like, I might not get out of this. Like, I mean, I had a lot of mental grit, and I was like, I'm going to do the thing. And what are you going to do? Quit? Like, I'm in spots. There's no way nobody can save me. They can't land a helicopter. I've just got to go. And if I die in the middle of it, I guess I die. So you talk about heart rate. I tracked my heart rate was between 155 and 170 for 7 straight hours. What? And I did not have a heart attack. So I was like, I've been worried that like maybe I'm at a risk for a heart attack. If I'm not going to have a heart attack there, guys, I'm telling you, on my daughter's lives, between 155 and 170 for 7 straight hours.
That is worse than my half Ironman. Like that is like heart wise, that is harder.
It was crazy. Wow. So here's the problem. You get to the Eye of the Needle. If people look this up, you get to the Eye of the Needle, which is several miles. It's not the full length we did. And most people turn around and go back, and they camp back at the landing. And the guy that was taking us, like, we're going to go around the Eye of the Needle. So you're like 450 feet up. You're going to go around the Eye of the Needle. And then we go down the mountain. Then we go back up the mountain. Then we go down another mountain. And then we're like, okay, we're going to camp on the ridge. And I look up at the ridge, and it's getting dark. It's like 5:30. It's getting dark. And I'm like, what? What ridge? Like that
That's
one
when
up
you
there.
Just throw him off the side.
It's 3/4 of a mile up at about a 50-degree incline. And at that ridge was not rocks. It was just leaves and trees. And so you're climbing up, you're grabbing roots, you get to a tree, you put your foot between the tree and the angle of the ridge, and you look for the next tree, and you're like, here we go, all fours, you climb it, and this pack is on your back the whole time. And you're like, at any point you slide, you fall, you'll slide 250, 300 feet, you're dead or legs are broken. It was insanity. When I finally got to the top of the ridge, I just laid down in the leaves and we made camp, and I slept like a baby in the hammock. I ate stew. I drank some whiskey. The next morning I had some coffee, and we had to hike 4.5 miles back down the ridge, which was not nearly as bad, except for like the constant cramping of my quads walking down the ridge for 4.5 miles. It was tough. Would I do it again? No. would I go to the eye of, so if I could do it over again, I would have left my pack and would have just taken water and maybe, some nuts or something, and would have hiked to the eye of the needle and then hiked back the same way we came, and then camped back at camp. But I think we thought, the guys that hadn't done it before thought, well, this is the hard part, is getting to the eye of the needle, climbing up the ropes, climbing up the sheer face of the mountain, and then we're just going to go around and camp's going to be there. It was like, no, you got another 2 miles of going up and down mountains. And I mean, there were times where literally I really did. I just wanted to like break down and cry. But I didn't. I was just like, I mean, I'm just going to die out here if I do. So I guess we're going to keep going. I cramped so bad on the way home. Like, we stopped at a gas station to go to the bathroom. I got out of the truck, and my legs, both my quads and both hamstrings, cramped so hard. I walked in and had to put my forearms on the counter of the checkout counter. And the lady's like, "Sir, are you okay?" And then this other guy comes to me. He's like, "Sir, can I help you?" And I was like, "I'm just having leg cramps really bad. I'll be okay. Just hang on." And I had to go to the bathroom so bad. I hadn't sat on a toilet in 2 days, I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to sit on this toilet. So then I start walking up and down the aisles of the gas station, legs cramping. And people are like, "Sir, can we help you find anything?" I'm like, I'm just trying to walk off the leg cramps so I can sit on this toilet. I don't think I can get down. And if I get down, I don't think I can get up. And so I finally did. Here's the weird thing. So I've squatted a lot lately. I squatted 405 for 5 very recently, not after the hike, but right before the hike. I felt so bad for about 18 hours after that hike. Like, my legs, I was like, oh no, I'm going to cramp all night long in bed. I had a big meal that night, went to sleep at like 6 o'clock, slept like 12 hours. I felt a lot better 24 hours later, and 48 hours later, I was like, I'm fine. So it was interesting. The recovery process was really interesting. So yeah, it was. And so if the question is it the hardest thing I ever did, it was definitely the hardest thing I've ever done. And so I'm just so used to doing, back when I was a professional strongman, doing stuff, flipping a 1,200 pound tire for 100 feet. I can go as hard as anybody for 2 minutes. Running your heart rate at 170 for 7 hours, that's a lot. It's hard. So,
that's probably a traumatic event.
It was hard. It was hard. In retrospect, now that I'm not dead and I don't think I have any PTSD or any long-term debilitating effects, I'm happy I did it. I don't really ever want to do that one again. The camping part, super fun. Would love to go camping again in a backpack.
Yeah.
Sans rock climbing for 4.5 miles.
Sans likely death.
Freaking crazy.
Well, let's just start to wrap things up with something exciting. So these questions are coming from Cameron Cox. He says, Thanksgiving lunch or Thanksgiving dinner? Which one is it for you guys?
CJ?
Yes.
Lunch or dinner?
We start at like noon 1, and then it sort of rolls through till like 7, 8.
Yeah. Lunch for us primarily. I have smoked turkeys for the last several years, which is a giant pain in the ass because they take like 12 hours to smoke. Except for I'm going to tell you my new secret. And so it is easier to do it for dinner. If you do it for lunch, I often have to do it the night before, wrap it, try to keep it hot. It's a pain in the butt, but I'll get there here in a minute. So yeah, lunch. What about you, Nikki?
Yeah, it usually turns into a late lunch. We're kind of classically behind where it's like, yeah, everyone come on over, we'll eat at 2. And then it's like 4 o'clock rolls around. And we're like,
4 o'clock.
Like,
that's like dinner and bedtime for me.
And we're like, all right, can we eat now? But I think we always aim for
everybody's
a late
drunk.
lunch.
It's like 4 o'clock. The whiskey got open at 2.
California time.
Okay, here's the next one. How do you pronounce the word? I'm going to spell it. Peacn.
No, you didn't spell it right.
PCAN.
PECAN.
I'm not a spelling bee champ. I'm a lifter. All right. PECAN.
CJ?
Did I spell it right?
Pecan.
Same, pecan. And in Missouri, this is split because if you know, like the Civil War history, we were split down the middle, but we do not say pecan generally in Missouri unless you live in the boot heel, which in the boot heel of Missouri, if you cut off the boot heel, the IQ of both Arkansas and Missouri would go up. Just think about that for a minute. If we cut off the boot hill and we gave it to Arkansas, their IQ would go up and ours would go up as well. So it's pecan. What about you? Same?
Fine words. Yeah, pecan.
Okay.
Pecan.
And what about, is it the stuff that or the things that you put inside of the turkey? Is it stuffing or dressing?
Okay.
I wasn't going to spell it, don't worry. I'm team
another
stuffing.
one we're split on. I think I call it dressing unless I'm calling it stovetop. And if it's stovetop, it's stuffing. But I specifically asked Rachel this question because I know it's her favorite side dish. And I said, hey, what's your favorite side dish for Thanksgiving? And I said, not a trick question. She was like, ooh, I love so many side dishes. That's what she started to say. I said, no. Just like, not a trick. What's your traditional? And she's like, stuffing. I was like, okay, there we go. So she says stuffing. I think most people in Missouri would say stuffing in general.
I didn't even know that dressing was the same thing.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
That's the thing that goes on
If
salad.
if the wife says stuffing, it's stuffing. You do not want to exacerbate family problems.
That's right. That's exactly right.
What about for your turkey, baked or fried, or an even better option, apparently?
Mm-hmm. CJ?
I'm not from the South or...
I've never, well, baked. Yeah, no, I mean, it's always been fried or smoked if we're going to do turkey. Since we've been, like say, in a small family, we running Thanksgivings for a while, it was duck. So we were kind of doing things a little different.
Niki, what about you?
I mean, I don't really often do traditional Thanksgiving meals. Like New Mexico, we do enchiladas.
Right.
We do pozole. We do green chili chicken stew. Like, we'll make turkey as kind of like the side dish for those things, like tamales.
Put green chili on turkey. You're like, this is New Mexico.
Without a doubt.
Delicious.
Yeah, then it's like delicious sandwiches would be leftover turkey with green chili and cheese and mustard. Oh, it's so good.
So baked turkey, for you boomers listening, you can GTFO. That's ridiculous. You put a turkey in an oven. No.
Ages.
They're already so dry.
Okay. There are two ways to cook a turkey, and it's fried or smoked. Those are the only options. Fried, it's a fire hazard, but it cooks fast. I have smoked turkeys, and I feel like I had perfected the smoked turkey until I smoked two of them actually just a couple days ago. So I started to spatchcock the turkey. I've never done. So typically you smoke a turkey, you smoke the whole turkey. It's in it's got the carcass. It's got the place where you could put the stuffing where nobody actually puts stuffing because you just put the stuffing in a 9x13 pan and cook it in the oven. And so I've been cooking Hamburg chickens spatchcocked. Spatchcocked means, I have no idea where that term comes from. You cut out the backbone. You cut their backbone out. And then you open it up and you lay the bird out flat. And so the breast and the thighs and legs all cook evenly. And what's wonderful about this with a turkey, when you smoke a turkey this way, by the way, I smoked a turkey this way. I did like half Lowry's, half Tony Chachery's, and then I basted it with cock sauce and butter the whole time. So I just mixed cock sauce and butter, and I just took the baster and just drizzled it on so it didn't get dry. And it takes this, so I had two 19-pound turkeys, almost 20-pound turkeys that I smoked right on top of each other. And rather than taking 12 hours, I cooked them in 4 hours.
Wow.
And then everybody was like, this is the most moist, succulent breast I've ever had in my life. That was a wonderful term, by the way. Moist, succulent breast. Anyway, back to turkeys. Moist, succulent breast. So spatchcocking turkeys smoked is great. By the way, fried is incredible if somebody has a good recipe to like Cajun fry a turkey. So I like mine with cock sauce. Cameron Cox.
Had that for dinner last night with chicken. It's delicious.
That's what we're going to do for my family's Thanksgiving on Thursday is we're going to do 2 Hamburg chickens for my family's on Thursday and then turkey for Rachel's family on Friday. So thank God I don't have to eat turkey 3 times in a row.
Yeah.
Because it gets old in a hurry. So questions then from Dan for you guys are more important question about than the turkey is what is your favorite side dish?
Potatoes.
You can't just say potatoes. That's just a root vegetable. How would you cook them? Mashed potatoes, roasted potatoes, right?
Roasted, primarily.
Okay, I was gonna say
we have a family recipe for them. We have 100 carrots and roast potatoes. Those are the options.
Little rosemary, olive oil, stuff like that. Is that
that sounds pretty dang good.
That sounds real good.
Man, I'm tempted to say pozole or
Pozole.
potatoes,
Nice.
or like actual mashed potatoes.
Rachel's 97-year-old
or
grandma
wine.
has always
Wine's
made
probably my other favorite
wine
side
is
dish.
your favorite side dish. What kind of wine do you drink on Thanksgiving?
Any kind.
Yes.
Franzia,
Do you have
Oh, really?
red?
No, actually, no.
bagged wine.
Okay, actually, I'll switch between red and white depending on which foods I'm having. It wouldn't. I
colors.
don't even put it past me
That's
to
not
have
even a
like
wine.
a glass of white wine and a glass of red wine.
What about
in front of me at the
rosé?
same
What are you
time.
racist against rosé?
Sure, I would. Yeah, I'm happy to
Rosacist.
partake in that. Or
Rosacist.
Lambrusco, like we've had before. Yeah.
Ooh,
Lambrusco.
Lambrusco, so damn good. A good
Mhm.
Lambrusco if it's not
Delicious.
too sweet. Yum yum. Rachel's 97-year-old grandma has made for many years a garlic cheesy grits, which I have been passed down the recipe and I've now made for the past 5 or 6 years, i.e. because she's 97. And I love that as a turkey side. I love a really good cranberry, like a homemade cranberry sauce. And so I'll do like a bite of turkey and a bite of cranberry sauce and go like, I'll go like turkey
Ooh,
and
yeah.
sweet. And then the next bite I'll go like turkey and grits and go like turkey and savory.
Nice.
And then maybe
Love
turkey and stuffing. Ooh, I said stuffing. So there you go. And so there you go. Favorite pie or dessert? We know, by the way, putting in a vote for Scott Hambrick. He says pumpkin pies are disgusting. Pecan pie is the only way to go. What do you guys think? Favorite pie or dessert around Thanksgiving? Not in general, but specifically at Thanksgiving.
Cherry pie
Pecan.
with ice cream,
Cherry pie with what
Pecan.
kind of ice cream? With just ice cream?
vanilla.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And pecan pie for you, CJ?
Pecan. Not pecan. Pecan.
Yeah, I would agree. I think pecan is my number one, although I have had several combos the last few years, like a pecan pumpkin pie. Have you guys had these?
Not
It's
yet.
crazy.
Sounds pretty good.
They're delicious. My biggest issue is, and I've talked about this on the podcast before, if you bring Cool Whip to my house, I will drop kick it into the neighbor's yard.
Unacceptable. It's so easy to make like fresh
Real
whipped
whipped
too.
cream is delicious.
Yeah.
Don't be buying that bullshit. Whipped
Yeah.
topping, not okay. So, yeah, any good pie with enough whipped cream is delicious. So, also you can throw it in the coffee after a while. It's delicious. So, yeah, so I'm the same way. Pecan's probably my favorite. A good pumpkin cheesecake, I do love if they do those. I'm not a big dessert guy. Drink of choice with your meal. Nikki's already said red or white, but definitely not rosé. She doesn't
I
like to
said
mix
I'm
her
fine with
colors.
rosé.
I know. I'm just giving you a hard time.
Depends
So-
on what I'm eating. Like, just wine is so much better with the right food, and food is so much better with the right wine.
That's right. We always
But-
we start with champagne. It's one of the few times a year that I actually spend some money on some Veuve Clicquot.
Ooh,
So we start with champagne, and then we move to the whites, and usually like a good Pinot Grigio or a Chardonnay or something. So usually don't go too crazy with like the with a Sauvignon or something. So yeah, mostly stick white. Mostly stay white, I think, on sometimes rosé on Thanksgiving. Usually don't go too heavy reds, which is typically what we drink is heavy reds. But CJ, what about you?
Coffee. No, I'll honestly, so I say that, but actually I've used like for Thanksgiving in particular, I just like the aroma of coffee in the house.
Oh yeah,
So
for
I'll,
sure.
I'll start with that and kind of keep it rolling throughout that lunchtime period. And I'll experiment with like, we have sherries, which people like sherry and coffee. Not bad. We have some old whiskey that we kind of never get through. So I'll try some and just kind of experiment with different flavors throughout the day. Some creams, just some
Irish
like cream
cream or
liqueurs and
something,
things.
Oh,
Mhm.
I was going Irish cream. So you guys know that, so this is going to come out no. Today is Tuesday before Thanksgiving. Tomorrow, do you guys know what tomorrow is? Tomorrow is a holiday. The Wednesday before Thanksgiving. Do you know what it is? It's Wild Turkey Wednesday. True. Have you never heard of this? I swear I didn't make this up. So the Wednesday.
Like the bourbon?
Yeah, bourbon. Wild turkey,
okay.
wild turkey bourbon. So yeah, the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, you're supposed to drink wild turkey, which I also tend to carry over into Thanksgiving and also the day after. But Wild Turkey 101, one of the best, cheap, delicious bourbons you can buy, or any of their excellent Master Wild Turkey. What's it called? Master something. Anyway, they've got a bunch of high-end turkey, wild turkeys as well. Yeah, so Wild Turkey is a fun one to drink. I like to do a Wild Turkey cranberry old fashioned. Little cranberry sauce, little bourbon, little bitters. Yum. Delicious.
All right. Well, speaking of wild turkeys, let's talk about those people who have been with us for 1,000 workouts.
That's true.
We've got a bit of a list today, so I want to make sure we get to share about them. So first up, we've got Seth Hibble. He works with Harry for strength and Dan Shell for nutrition, and I want to tell you about Seth. Lots of good things can be said about them. This is coming from Harry, by the way. He's highly committed and disciplined both in the gym and out of the gym. He's a school teacher, military professional, father, and husband. This guy gets a lot of work done. His lifting PRs speak for themselves. He deadlifts over 400 pounds, has squatted over 400 for reps, presses over 200, and benches over 300. Harry says it's been a joy working with him. He's an ideal trainee, does the work, doesn't complain, gives me feedback on how he's doing and where he wants to go with his training. It's awesome. And from Dan, he's logged meals in MyFitnessPals for 677 days in a row. And that was
crazy.
As of November 3rd.
Nice job, Seth.
That's amazing. And he's supposed to, not published yet, but he's told to take command of an Army National Guard brigade in early of 2023.
Cool.
So that's pretty rad.
Awesome.
Yeah.
By the way, these are all people who have
Well done,
completed
Seth.
1,000 workouts under block. So they've been, this is not something you can do in a year or two. This is usually a
Yeah.
5, 6, 7 year process. The next one is Whitney Wong with Becca Krieg. Whitney is a hardworking physical therapist from North California who works out his stress in the gym. Whitney has an intensely busy schedule, but has found the time to make lifting heavy a regular part of his life. Very close to hitting a 600-pound deadlift. 600-pound deadlifting physical therapist. How many of those exist on this earth? I would say not very many. So shout out to Whitney.
That's rad. Adam, also with Becca, he started lifting with his sons, but found that he loved the goal-oriented progression of strength training, so he stuck with it. Though he's been working through knee injuries as of late, he still makes time in his busy schedule to lift 3 days a week, with his bench press exploding to some new lifetime PRs. Adam lives with his family in Utah. Adam, dude, that's really awesome. I know knee stuff is really, really frustrating to work through, and it's like changes how you have to train and you feel it through life, but I'm glad you're kind of shedding some light on your upper body work. It's pretty awesome.
I like to
Congrats,
shed light
dude.
on my upper body work too. Is that what you said? No. All right. Shout out to Ben Calvert, who is with Sean Thacker for strength coaching and Jeremy Elder for nutrition. Both of the guys said like he never complains, just does what he's supposed to do, which is awesome. Even when he broke his lower leg last spring, God, I hope that wasn't squatting. He still continued to rehab and trusted the process. His work ethic is incredible. Dealing with multiple sclerosis, a broken leg, demanding coach. He's come a long way back up to squatting near his competition PR. That's super cool. And then same thing with nutrition. He's super positive with everything he's been through. Struggled with lifting with MS, dealing with a broken leg. Just as Sam has mentioned, he's remained positive through all of it. Upbeat, feeling good at every check-in call. His motivation score, which I track weekly, has never dipped below a 5. He always owns up to weeks that don't go according to plan and gets right back on track. By the way, this guy has MS. Are you listening?
Damn.
And you're like, I can't do this because I did a hard hike in Arkansas. Yes, you can do this. Like,
That's
good
inspiring.
grief. Ben, that's awesome. Thank you so much for being part of the family at Barbell Logic. All right, Nikki, I'll let you take the last one.
Doug Miller and his wife, who's also a BL1K winner, they've been working with the Kriegs for 8 years now in person and online. That is such dedication. That's awesome. If you knew Doug, you'd be jealous of how strong his press and bench are, which we don't know those numbers, but I guess we can just be jealous. And for how little time he has to train them. Yeah. Doug usually logs his workouts before 6 a.m. while being a busy business owner in central Pennsylvania. That is awesome. Nice job, Doug and Shannon. We've had like a couple, or I think most of these entries said that these clients don't complain very much. I wonder when we're going to have the next BL1K winner who's just like, this client complains all the time. All the time.
Right.
Incredibly consistent.
Still complains.
Consistently complains.
Amazingly loyal. Has stayed all through 1,000 workouts, complained every single workout, never canceled their membership.
It's gonna happen.
It's going to. So yeah, so we do a big celebration for BL1K for when you hit 1,000 workouts. You get a special plaque. You cannot buy this plaque. We order it specifically for you. It's personalized for you. You get to hang it on your gym wall. You get fun handwritten cards and all sorts of fun stuff from us. And we just celebrate that. 1,000 workouts is a big deal. If you think about doing 9, 10, 12 workouts a month, do the math. It's 100 months. It's 100 months to be able to hit 1,000 workouts. And so we now have a bunch of these. I think we're at, I don't know, like almost 30 at this point. So really cool. So
Yeah. Anyway, we've got some great things coming along for January of next year. So stick with us through December. It's going to be a fun way to wrap up the year.
There's some great outtakes. So you guys have a great Thanksgiving, or you had a great Thanksgiving. Hope you have happy holidays. Enjoy your family. And let's crush it for the end of the year.
Yes. Awesome.
Take care.
See you guys next week.